Thanks for watching. This is YouTube Medical University. This time I will introduce an unexpected study that found a link between coffee, naps and the risk of dementia. Currently it is said that 1 out of every 5 people over the age of 65 develops dementia. Once dementia progresses, it is very difficult to return to the original state. Despite the lack of effective dementia treatments, creating a society where people with dementia can live comfortably is crucial. However, it's equally important to take steps to prevent developing dementia in the first place. In other words, being aware of the risks of dementia, and conversely, I think it's good to know about lifestyle habits that can help prevent dementia. Coffee and naps, which are easy to incorporate into daily life, have been linked to the risk of dementia. Coffee is often thought of as something that keeps you awake. In contrast, daytime napping makes you sleepy and helps you rest. These two habits may reduce dementia risk, but depending on how they're done, they could also raise the risk. This time, based on research findings, I'll introduce how you can make the best use of coffee and naps to avoid increasing your risk. So, YouTube Medical University shares practical health tips from doctors to help you live better, starting now. We responsibly share information in an easy to understand way. Please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new videos. First of all, what exactly is dementia? What kind of illness is it? What have we learned about it since 2015? And what should we do to avoid turning a blind eye to dementia? I'll introduce the early stage signs, then discuss them in more detail in the second part. I'll also discuss dementia and delirium's relationship. Third, I'll talk about the unexpected link between dementia and coffee. Finally, in part 4, please stay tuned. I'll introduce the methods I recommend to reduce the risk of dementia. If you're interested in learning not only about dementia and its early warning signs, but also about naps and coffee, please be sure to watch from the second part onward. First, I'll briefly explain what dementia is. Here is the basic definition of dementia. It's not just simple forgetfulness. It's when the nerve cells in the brain are damaged. When memory and judgment decline and cognitive functions deteriorate, it interferes with daily life. If it's just occasional forgetfulness that doesn't particularly cause problems in everyday living, then it's not considered dementia. When I talk with patients, many of them, especially seniors, come in because they're worried about recent forgetfulness. In most cases, this is not dementia. With dementia, people often don't realize themselves that they're forgetting things, so it's more common for family members to bring them in together, rather than the person coming in on their own. Is it really that you're developing dementia? One theory is that waste products, so to speak, accumulate in the brain's nerve cells. These are called tau proteins, or amyloid beta. It's thought that these waste products build up in the brain's nerve cells and may damage or destroy them. However, in reality, when the brains of people who did not develop dementia are examined under a microscope after dissection, it has been confirmed that tau proteins and amyloid beta, which are considered causes of dementia, are also present. So, it's possible that these substances alone may not be the only problem, or there may be other causes. The definite cause of dementia is still not fully understood, and new research is ongoing. However, when it comes to the risk of developing dementia, various studies have identified several factors over the years. The factors that can lead to dementia. Risks include obesity, high blood pressure, smoking, and diabetes. These are considered the main risks. In particular, the issue of loneliness and social isolation is especially significant. As the population ages and the number of children decreases, local communities are becoming less connected and more people are feeling isolated. There are even research results showing that the risk of dementia is about twice as high for those who feel isolated. Maintaining connections with other people is actually very important for preventing dementia. Physical exercise is also said to be important, and there is a lot of interesting research on this topic. Alone and silently. Compared to those who exercised alone and silently, people who didn't exercise because their legs or back hurt, but instead participated in exercise circles and enjoyed socializing with others, were found to be less likely to need nursing care in the future. In fact, those who exercised alone had a higher risk of needing nursing care later on. So, while exercise is important, talking and interacting with others is just as important. It's something very important, even just hearing this much. You might start to wonder if you yourself might develop dementia, or if you might be at risk. Some of you might be thinking, maybe someone in my family could have dementia, or maybe not. Actually, even in the early stages of dementia, or even just before the first symptoms appear, there can already be some signs showing up. I will introduce 7 main symptoms, starting with short-term memory impairment. For instance, in his 60s, Mr. Yamada. For example, Mr. Yamada would forget that he had already eaten breakfast and would repeatedly ask his wife if he had eaten, insisting that he hadn't eaten yet, even though he actually had. This caused a lot of trouble and confusion for his wife, so they came to the hospital together. When cognitive function declines like this, short-term memory also deteriorates. Forgetting things that just happened is a sign of short-term memory impairment. However, Mr. Yamada still clearly remembered things related to his work from the past. He could recall those things well. Just because someone remembers things from the past doesn't mean they don't have dementia, so please be careful about that. The second symptom is a decline in judgment ability. It is said that while we are alive, we make some kind of judgment or decision every 3 seconds. Having appropriate judgment ability is very important for living our lives. Mr. Sato, who is in his 70s, tried to go to the hospital wearing a thick sweater in the middle of summer, but his wife stopped him and had him change into appropriate clothes before coming to the hospital. Choosing clothes that match the season, or appropriately selecting means of transportation, like this. Such decisions become difficult to make. Third, there are people whose sense of place and time declines. This is because in dementia, the part of the brain called the parietal lobe, which is responsible for recognizing places, loses some of its function. For example, Mr. Suzuki, who had lived in the same place for 40 years and was 65 years old, suddenly couldn't find his way home and called his family. It's not that his memory is completely gone, but rather due to the decline in the function of the parietal lobe, he gets confused. Even on a familiar road, he might take a wrong turn, or he might end up taking a detour or suddenly not know where he is. The fourth symptom is changes in language association and comprehension. Mr. Takashi, 68, who has always loved reading, recently found following words on a page tiring and can no longer read the newspaper. He says he can't read like before and sometimes can't find the right words. He was also worried that the number of words he couldn't recall in daily life was increasing. He used to enjoy reading, but now he finds it difficult to follow along with the words in a video or to understand the story at a normal speed. He finds it hard to come up with words like that or this. So, even though he used to read novels and newspapers, he has stopped reading them altogether. His cognitive and language processing abilities may be declining. Another common symptom is forgetting where things are placed. People with dementia tend to lose their short-term memory, so even if they just put something down, they can't remember where it is. People with dementia often don't realize themselves that they are forgetting things. Because they have a strong sense of responsibility, people with dementia may worry if they lose their wallet or think someone has taken it, so they tend to keep important things in new places that even they don't know. However, they often forget where they put them. For example, someone might always keep their wallet in their bag, but when they check, it's not there. In this situation, because they don't remember putting it somewhere else, they may think someone took it. This can lead to trouble with family members. I've seen this happen many times. The sixth symptom is a lack of motivation. Some people may even be misunderstood and sent to the hospital because their family thinks they are pretending to be sick. People with dementia often struggle to protect their self-esteem, and it's not easy for them. They may stop attending their usual activities and lose interest in them. As a result, they may become less active and reluctant to leave the house. Recently, many people are hardly leaving their homes, causing family to wonder if it's an illness. However, this is actually a symptom of dementia. The seventh symptom is having trouble making decisions. For example, one of the most complicated daily tasks is cooking. Miss Kimura, who used to enjoy cooking even at the age of 67, suddenly started to lose track of the order of the dishes she was making. Because of this, she lost confidence and gradually stopped cooking meals as she used to. Her family was worried because even though she used to love cooking, she stopped making even simple dishes like grilled fish or omelets. There was also an incident where she forgot about a pot on the stove and the fire alarm went off because she left it unattended. People try various methods to manage cooking, like buying ingredients in bulk, batch cooking, or displaying simple recipe photos. However, the tasks they struggle with gradually increase. This is dementia, but with the right support and creativity from others, many people can maintain their abilities for an extended period. We've explained this in detail in a previous video about dementia, so check out the summary section after this if you're interested. Well then, please wait a moment. In the next segment, we will discuss how to reduce the risks associated with dementia. Now, I will introduce the relationship between dementia, which can be caused by various factors, and napping during the day. Do you usually take naps? Some people might think that napping is only for children, but that's not necessarily the case. Actually, some people might think that taking a nap during the day will make them feel sluggish in the afternoon, so they consciously avoid it, or they have various other reasons for not napping. According to 2010 research, dementia and daytime napping were found to be deeply related. Normally, when comparing people who take naps and those who take long naps during the day, it was found that those who take long naps actually have a higher risk of developing dementia. Furthermore, additional research was conducted and published in 2012 according to a highly credible paper called a meta-analysis. They analyzed 11 studies involving a total of 250,000 people. Moderate daytime naps actually improve the risk of dementia, while, as I mentioned earlier, long naps increase the risk of dementia. That was the result. By the way, a moderate nap means a nap of 30 to 60 minutes, and a long nap refers to a nap of more than 90 minutes. It is said that the risk of dementia and daytime naps have a U-shaped relationship. People who don't take naps at all have a higher risk of dementia than those who do. But on the other hand, taking too many naps also increases the risk of dementia. That was the conclusion. I think this is very interesting. Actually, when you take a nap, there is something in the brain called the glymphatic system, which is like a waste removal system in the brain. It is said that this system becomes more active during naps and removes old waste products from the brain. After a nap, your brain might feel clearer in the afternoon. Recently, there has even been a push to incorporate naps. More and more companies are starting to introduce naps. Everyone, why not try taking a short nap during your lunch break, maybe for about 10 to 30 minutes. Next, I'd like to talk about the relationship between dementia and coffee. Do you usually drink coffee? In fact, according to some studies, coffee may help prevent dementia. According to a highly credible study published in 2015, drinking 1 to 2 cups of coffee a day showed a lower risk of dementia compared to those who did not drink coffee. When comparing people who drank coffee with those who didn't drink any at all, the coffee drinkers had about a 27% lower risk of developing dementia. In conclusion, a meta-analysis spanning 2018 years focused on Northern Europe and America. It's a study. For each additional cup of coffee consumed, it is said that the risk of developing Alzheimer's type dementia decreases by 8%. That's the conclusion. In other words, the more coffee you drink, the lower your risk of dementia. That's the conclusion they've reached. In addition, in a Finnish study published in 2009, they tracked people over a long period and found that those who drank 3 to 5 cups of coffee a day had about a 65% lower risk of dementia. The effect lasted for about 21 years, so the conclusion is that drinking coffee for many years may have long-term beneficial effects. In addition, drinking coffee seems to especially lower the risk of certain diseases in women. It can increase your concentration and improve your test scores. Various beneficial effects are expected. This is thought to be due to the caffeine contained in coffee, but that's not the only reason. It's also thought that polyphenols, which are antioxidants, may be effective as well. Polyphenols are antioxidants that are expected to help reduce oxidative stress in the body and suppress inflammation. It's also possible that inflammation is related to the mechanisms that cause cognitive impairment, so suppressing this inflammation may be beneficial. Coffee, which contains polyphenols, was shown to lower the risk of dementia. It's possible. On the other hand, drinking too much coffee can lead to excessive caffeine intake. Personally, unless otherwise instructed by a doctor, I recommend drinking about 1 to 3 cups of coffee a day. However, for those who have circulatory system issues or heart disease, for those with mental illnesses, those who are seeing a psychiatrist or pregnant women, that amount may not be appropriate. Caffeine can sometimes have negative effects, and how it affects each person can vary greatly. For example, if I drink 4 or 5 cups of coffee a day or have energy drinks, my hands start to shake and I can experience palpitations. So, caffeine isn't always good for everyone. So if you're concerned, it's best to consult your doctor and decide together how much you should take. Finally, I'd like to introduce some recommended lifestyle habits to help prevent cognitive decline, in addition to using things like naps and coffee in moderation. Some of you may already be aware of this, but this is a technique called a coffee nap. Its effectiveness has actually been proven by National Aeronautics and Space Administration, the American Space Agency. For pilots and astronauts, concentration is extremely important. That's why this technique called the coffee nap is used. Here's how you actually do a coffee nap. Right before your nap, drink a cup of coffee. Then take your nap as usual. In reality, the caffeine you take in doesn't start to take effect until about 30 minutes to 2 hours after you've consumed it. So while you're napping, the concentration of caffeine in your blood gradually increases. So please make sure to set your nap time to about 20 minutes. After a while, when you wake up, the caffeine concentration in your body will have increased, making it easier to wake up and allowing you to focus better on your work afterward. This technique is called a coffee nap. By doing this, you can make the most of your limited time during the day and spend it more productively. Also, taking naps and drinking coffee have been shown to lower the risk of cognitive decline. That's why I personally recommend coffee naps if you want to stay sharp. I would also like to recommend something called a +1. What exactly is this +1 and how does it work? Basically, right before your nap, you drink a cup of coffee, then take a nap for about 30 minutes to an hour, and finally, you do some exercise. This is the routine I suggest as a set. The reason is that exercise also lowers the risk of cognitive decline and activates the brain, making it very important. The legs are sometimes called the second heart, and by moving your legs, you help improve your body's circulation. After a nap, it's risky to start intense exercise abruptly. Instead, do some light stretching for about 5 minutes to gradually wake up your body before exercising. How does that sound? The exercise intensity can be light, such as a 5-minute walk, 10 minutes of light jogging, or radio calisthenics. Start with something easy that you can do yourself without strain. Some of my foreign patients say napping makes them feel sluggish. There are also people who think that way, but actually taking a nap for an appropriate amount of time is good for your body. When I recommend it and they actually try taking naps, they discovered that they had more time and felt more refreshed in the afternoons. Some people also mentioned that this allowed them to consistently engage in circle activities. Try a coffee nap or a coffee nap +1. If it works for you, leave a comment and share your results to help others. That's all for today's review. Regarding the relationship between cognitive impairment and naps, people who took naps for 30 minutes to an hour had a lower risk of cognitive impairment compared to those who didn't nap at all. On the other hand, people who napped for more than 90 minutes actually had an increased risk of cognitive impairment. So it's important to take naps for an appropriate amount of time. As for the relationship between cognitive impairment and coffee, drinking 1 to 3 cups of coffee daily was associated with a lower risk of cognitive impairment compared to non-coffee drinkers, and research indicates this effect was long-lasting. Regarding coffee, historically, since it's shown in the video, if you'd like, please take a look at the summary section after this. Also, I did take naps, but I wonder if it's bad to nap too much. For those who struggle with sleep, like waking up at night after going to bed, I've posted videos about this before. Check them out if interested. I've also shared United States military methods that helped 96% of people fall asleep in 2 minutes and my personal techniques. Take a look if you'd like. If you found this helpful or surprising at all. And for those who have questions, please feel free to leave a comment. Also, if you like this video, I'd be happy if you could rate it by clicking the good button or even the bad button. And if you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new videos, it would really encourage me. Well then, let's meet again in the next video. This is what I learned from my patients as a psychosomatic medicine doctor. How to stay youthful in your 70s. Gift ranking and best sellers in the Amazon 4 categories. It became #1. As an ordinary doctor, I have compiled the important ways of living and health methods that I learned from my patients while working. This book is for those who want to live a healthy life like this. It is currently selling very well, so please check it out.